and wanted to welcome everybody to today's conference. It's the peer-to-peer virtual conference. This is our third time running this conference. And just a quick sound check, if somebody could just answer in the Q&A if you can hear me or not. Just respond in the questions and answers. Great, I get a yes, so thank you very much for responding. We're looking forward to today's virtual conference. This is the first session in today's webinars. I'm going to advance to the next slide here. Today's first session is how to plan, launch, run, and wrap up successful online peer-to-peer fundraising campaigns and events. Our conference hosts this time around are ACG, Cathexis Partners, HEP Data, OP3, and Twilio.org. Again, we're going to be doing sessions throughout the day from 10 a.m. Eastern this morning through 5 p.m. this afternoon with different hosts and nonprofits talking about different topics throughout the day, and we hope you can join. Again, my name is Mark Becker. I'm the founding partner of Cathexis Partners, and I'm going to be joined in this session by Maria and Adam. And Maria, you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hi, good morning. My name is Maria Shanley. I'm the Senior Digital Marketing Manager at Second Harvest Food Bank in Central Florida. We're based in Orlando, Florida. I oversee online fundraising, our peer-to-peer tools, social media, and we now have a story builder, so I oversee her as well.
Great, thanks. Adam, how about yourself?
Hi, I'm Adam Wilt. I am the Advancement Director of Events at the American Brain Tumor Association, and I oversee our endurance platform as well as our 5K run and walk series. Both of those are a nationwide series.
Terrific. And what we're going to be using as an outline for today is a guide, actually, that Cathexis Partners just put out last week or a couple weeks ago. And actually, it is available for download. If you look in the GoToWebinar control panel, there's handouts available, and this is one of the handouts. It's also available on our website, we basically use that guide as an outline for today's session. So hopefully you find today's session interesting and can get more detailed information about these topics within the guide. Also, we plan on making this an interactive session. It looks like we have over 90 people so far into this webinar. Thank you all for joining us. And while because it is so many people on the call, we have to, of course, mute everybody. Feel free to ask questions or provide feedback or your ideas in the questions chat box in the GoToWebinar control panel. But we're also going to be doing polls, a total of 8 different polls throughout this to try to make this more interactive and get feedback from folks. And so to that end, I actually want to kick off the first poll here, just simple question here to try to get a feel for everybody's that's on the call and what your level of involvement is. You should have just seen a poll question open up on your screen, and it basically is a yes/no question. So just take a moment to fill that out. I'll leave that up for a moment. Is your organization currently running any type of peer-to-peer or planning at least one peer-to-peer campaign? Yes or no. So I'm just going to give it a couple seconds for folks to answer that. We have 101 attendees so far, so thank you for joining us, and please take a moment to fill out that poll. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close that poll out now and then share the results. So 83% of you are currently having or do currently have or are planning a peer-to-peer campaign, and 17 aren't. But maybe you're looking to consider it or want to find out more or just kind of curious what this is all about. Either way, thank you for joining us on today's call. All right, let me move on to the next slide here. So an introduction to peer-to-peer fundraising for those 17% on the call that haven't done a peer-to-peer campaign. Basically, it starts out with traditional run, walks, ride events, or even multi-day walks. In the case of the Avon 39 is a good example of a multi-day, 2-day, 39.3-mile walk event. but these are your standard kind of walks. It could also be rappelling, it could also be bowling, anything like that, but it's more of your traditional kind of walks. Adam, you want to tell us a little bit more about the BT 5K that ABTA does?
Sure. We have our event series in 9 different markets around the country, Chicago being our first event and still currently our largest. And these events are all run and walk events, but really the kind of the core to it is, and the fundraising component of it is our participants all register, and then either as part of teams or as individuals ask friends, families, coworkers for donations and help support our cause. And really it's a lot of people who are obviously supporting our cause, but really they're supporting the individuals who are asking them. And so that's really where that peer-to-peer component is of getting those individuals to ask their network and their circle of influence for donations, as well as for support and being teammates as well. And that's really the kind of the bread and butter of the peer-to-peer side of things for us.
Awesome. And a lot of your revenue at the organization does come through your events, correct?
Yeah, from our different event variations, we're about 40% of our revenue is from those.
Great, thanks. Then you have the non-traditional campaigns, like Central Florida, Second Harvest Central Florida's Food Bank, their virtual food drive. Another client of ours, Parkinson's Canada, does a Life List Challenge, where it's kind of bucket list adventures, skydiving, NASCAR racing, and then ABTA also does a Breakthrough Your Way, which is a virtual fundraiser. Maria, you want to share a little bit more about your virtual food drive?
Yeah, so we started our virtual food drive because we had a lot of individuals who do regular food drives for us, like in the fall, and they kept asking us, is there a way I can do this online? And so we ended up building this tool, and basically when someone sets up a page, it has a shopping cart, and it basically really shows what your donation can provide. And with us, a $1 donation can provide up to $9 worth of food. And so the shopping cart just really shows the power of your gift. The majority of our participants are companies versus individuals, but we work on trying to get more individuals to sign up as well.
Excellent. And then Adam, anything you want to add about the Breakthrough Your Way virtual campaigns?
Sure. Yeah, this is where we provide our constituents with the opportunity to choose how they fundraise. And so a lot of people may not be either in one of our markets for our 5Ks or for the endurance program, but they also want to coordinate an event on their own. Sometimes it is a 5K or an endurance event, but a lot of times it's some sort of party, some sort of social event, even sometimes like golf outings, things like that. So this provides them with a team raiser page. They get a fundraising page for this where they can solicit donations from individuals as well as post information and details about their event.
Terrific. Thanks, guys. Let's talk about planning your peer-to-peer campaign. First thing we suggest is going out and looking at what other organizations are already doing. Every year, the Peer-to-Peer Professional Forum puts out the list of top 30 fundraising campaigns. That might be a good place to start. The ones that raise the most money: American Cancer Society, Alzheimer's, Heart, Avon, 39, those types of things. All those are listed up there. You can go check them out. Maybe even look into the registration, go through the registration process. Some of them have registration fees, others do not. And just see what it's like, how easy is it to set up a campaign, what tools does the organization provide you as a participant to basically fundraise on the organization's behalf, what kind of coaching and support does the organization provide you as a participant, and what do you like or dislike about the overall process. And while we do recommend going out and seeing what other organizations are doing, definitely make it your own, and don't just steal directly from and borrow from other sites' content and flows, but and branding. Obviously, we don't want to recommend any of that. Just use it as a way of seeing what other folks are doing, what's working, what you like and what you dislike, and then go ahead and make it your own. The next step in the planning phase is really identifying your goals. Financial goals, how much overall are you looking to raise with the campaign? How much does the average fundraiser, do you expect them to raise? But also the non-financial goals. How many participants are you going to get? How many team members do you want on each team if it's a team fundraising type of campaign? Other financial goals as well, and then make sure you have internal agreement on those goals, right? Because at the end of it, you might feel like you were very successful, perhaps if you have the role of the event manager, but someone else on the board or your executive director might feel that it fell short. So making sure you know what those goals are, even if you can't control what they are, know what they are, make sure there's as much as possible agreement within your team internally, and then we'll talk later on about tracking those. So time now for our second poll of the session. Let me go ahead and launch this one. Second question is, do you feel your organization's campaign goals are well-defined and agreed upon internally before the campaign starts is kind of assumed in the question. So yes or no on that. I'll leave that up there for a few more moments so people have a chance to vote. Again, do you feel your organization's campaign goals are well-defined? Go ahead and click right in there and give us your vote. We have, right now we have 122 attendees on the session, so thanks for joining us. And about 60% of you have voted. Come on, people, get up there and click something. Thanks for taking the time to do that. I'm going to go ahead and close that out here momentarily. Just give you a couple more seconds before I close that poll. And again, thank you for taking the time to do that. Now I'm going to go ahead and share the results. Good news is that 72% of you do feel that your goals are well defined prior to that, and everybody agrees on them. 28% say no, so that's also, I think, good news that you at least acknowledge that, and we can make recommendations and check out the guide for some suggestions, or feel free to reach out to us if you need any help and how to kind of get that agreement internally on your goals. So thanks for taking the time to do that. All right, next thing is in the planning stage is determine your budget, right? How much staff time are you going to need? What's the monetary equivalent of that? Marketing costs, both, again, in staff time and creating emails, sending out social media tweets, that type of thing, but also any physical marketing channels that you're paying for, costs of your platform, your online software, any kind of kickoff party or any kind of supporting events that you might have that kind of lead up to the physical event, or any kind of kickoff for a virtual campaign you might be doing, and then the actual physical event logistical cost if you're doing a physical event. Obviously not a factor if you're doing a virtual campaign, but a lot of these other costs still do matter, especially when it comes to virtual campaigns. Marketing and staff time should be definitely increased to make sure that people are even aware that you have a campaign. Then decide on the format, right? What type of campaign is it going to be? Are you going to do a 5K in a physical event? Are you going to do something more of a challenge or endurance or a destination type of campaign, multi-day event, or something that requires more of logistics involved, or maybe even assisting with travel to another place, like we have a client that has a climb up of Mount Everest to base camp, and Canadian WaterAid Canada does that campaign, and there's a lot of, obviously, costs and planning involved with that, and logistics, so there's a very good high fundraising amount to make sure that those costs are covered. So a lot to consider in that, but also very life-changing for the people involved with that. Or is it going to be a virtual campaign or a DIY independent fundraiser? Really have to think about what type of campaign you have. Know when you do those physical events, there's more costs associated with them, so you're not going to be able to return as much back to the cause, but you might get a lot more overall fundraising with physical events that you might not receive if you do a virtual campaign. All right, so there's a lot of pros and cons in those, and time for the next poll question. What types of peer-to-peer campaigns does your organization currently run? I'm going to go ahead and launch that here. This is a multi-select, so you can choose more than one option. What type of campaign do you currently run? I'm going to leave that open here. You guys are responding. I like it. A lot of physical events, a lot of virtual campaigns, right now, about 35% tributes and memorials, challenge and endurance, up around 25%. That's great. Going to leave that open for a few more moments here while people are giving their input. All right, and I'm going to go ahead and close that out now and share the results of this poll. So we have currently 123 people on the call, and it looks like about 70% of you are doing physical events, 28 are doing challenges, 70% are doing virtual campaigns, and 33% are doing tributes or memorials. And again, you can be doing more than one type, like, for example, APTA or Second Harvest Central Florida are doing. So thanks for taking the time and doing that. I think this is going to be very interesting. Again, we are recording this session, and we'll share the recording out afterwards, and it will include the poll results. So I think that's very interesting. Thank you. All right, next, in the planning, make sure you build your team. Who's going to be involved in organizing all of this? Your campaign leader, might be your event manager, might be a marketing person, executive director, what's their involvement in this, marketing manager, IT rep, finance manager, fundraising manager, database manager, community cheerleader. Some of you might be laughing and saying, well, I'm all of those things, and it's quite possible, and we have several clients that are several of these different roles, right? You wear many hats. It may be one or more people for each of these roles, or one person might be handling all of these or multiple of these roles. But make sure you know who your team is, and bring them all on board, and let them make sure that they all know what the goals are for the campaign, and again, make sure there's agreement on all that. All right. You also have to obviously have a platform for your online fundraising. So discover what your options are, know what your requirements are, and that's really important. Before you start talking to platform providers, salespeople, make sure you know what you need. Salespeople there's a lot of great sales folks in this industry that I'm personal friends with, and not to at the risk of being sounding negative towards them, just know what you need to make sure works and what your requirements are for the platform, because they're going to show you what they really like about their tool or what their platform does really well. So make sure that you direct the conversation when you start getting into the bake-off or looking at the different demos of the platform, so you know what you need to have work, because you want to make sure that the sales meeting doesn't end up with Chris Farley putting a car on fire. You want to make sure that you really control and know what your requirements are and whether or not the platforms you're looking at meet those requirements. And it might have optional requirements versus true required things, or nice to have versus need to have type of things. Make sure you ask all those questions, get those references prior to making that decision. To that end, we did put out another guide last October, and that's also available in the handouts section in the GoToWebinar control panel. It really looks at 18 different platforms, and there's more than that out there, but these are some of the bigger ones that have been around for a while, that I had a chance to review last fall. So that's another guide if you want to look at different platform options. That's a good resource for you. And it's broken down in a variety of ways as far as front-end functionality, back-end functionality, reporting, integration, and even the costs are in there. And again, that's available in the handout section and also available to download from our website. So the next poll, let me get that up here. The downside with the poll questions are you can only have a maximum of 5 responses, so I had to kind of summarize this. So the next one is, what platforms do your organization use or have you used throughout your career? I'm going to go ahead and launch that question. Again, it's multi-select. It's really broken down. Again, I can only have 5 options in here. I'm not by any means making any kind of declaration of which ones are best or anything like that, but I kind of put them up by the 4 most prevalent out there, and then other. So we have Blackbaud, which is TeamRaiser, Friends Asking Friends, or Kintera, or Sphere, it might be known as, and TeamRaiser, it used to be Convio. They also have Everyday Hero, and then there's Classy, Donor Drive, or Global Cloud, Donor Drive by Global Cloud, and then FrontStream has Artez, First Giving, and then there's all the other ones. And again, only limited to those selections because limited to the number of answers. So I'll give you another moment or two to answer. I always find this very interesting when I have a webinar or a session and get a show of hands of who's using what. I find it kind of interesting. So I'm going to go ahead and close this one down now, and then show the results. And this makes me think I did pretty well on putting the 4 up there. So about 54% are on Blackbaud, 21% Classy, 14% Donor Drive, 10% FrontStream, and 43% are using other tools. And that could be Giving Spirit, Great Feats, Rallybound, QGive, a lot of other great options out there. Just again, couldn't list them all. So thank you for taking that poll. Just goes to show you, you may or may not be aware of how many different tools are out there. And again, even, let me show this screen again, even this slide doesn't list all of them. And we'll probably be making an update to this guide next year with additional options and looking at different things. So thank you for taking the time for that poll. So let's get into building your peer-to-peer campaign. All right, the first thing is create a story. What problem does your campaign solve? What difference does one donation make? And how do you want people to feel about your campaign? And again, I think the Avon 39 campaign does a really good job of that. This is their campaign. This is a screenshot of their campaign for 2017, Warriors Wanted, and it talks about where the money goes, how they make a difference in the world. And then another good example, I think, is right here in Central Florida. And Maria, if you want to talk a little bit about kind of how the virtual shopping cart and how you use that to show people the buying power and the network that you guys work with.
So when an individual, when they set up their page, when someone goes to donate, they have the option to it's like a representational tool, so it just really shows them, like for a $35 gift, we can provide almost 1,500 apples, and so it's almost like a shopping experience for them, and then they can check out, and so they have the option to either go through the shopping cart or they're able to just strictly just donate a specific amount. We've found that the majority of the people come to our page and just donate, but we think it's important to have those graphics there because it really does show the power of their gift and what we're able to do with it.
Awesome, thank you. And then, so create the story, determine your branding, what's the name of the campaign, what identifies your campaign as distinct from others, and what emotions do you want to evoke. And I had added this screenshot to actually, the second one, just after Maria and I were talking in leading up to this, because they had the virtual food drive and consistently kind of change it out throughout the year. I think it's 3 different campaigns you normally run depending on the time of year, and then you made an update, right?
Yes, so we run 2 campaigns. We do our Summer Hope for Kids because during the summertime a lot of kids are out of school and they need food, and then our Hope for the Holidays is our fall campaign. And so after Hurricane Irma hit, we had a lot of response, from, not just from our community, but from out of the state, of people wanting to help out. And so we ended up launching our Hope for the Holidays campaign early, and we added an option so someone could register for a Hurricane Irma virtual food drive. And by doing that, we're also able to make sure that those gifts get designated to that specific fund. And we ended up changing our logo on the left-hand side. Usually it says Hope for the Holidays, but now it just says Second Harvest until October or November. Then we'll change it back to just Hope for the Holidays.
Perfect. All right. Thank you very much. Next, in building out your campaign, create a comms plan. Map out each campaign step. Consider your audience. Who's going to be receiving this? Who are you working with? Who are your constituents? Who's going to register? Who's going to donate? Think about your message points and start thinking about your communications channel. Right? It's not just all about email. You might have direct mail. You might obviously social media. It's getting more and more important. You might do radio spots, local TV or national TV, all of that depending on the size. So make sure you're thinking about all of your communications channels when you're putting together your communications plan. And then also think about how it fits into your general communications going out from the organization as a whole. Right, time for another poll. Does your organization have a communications calendar created in advance of the season? Let me go ahead and launch that. And there's just a single answer, yes, no, but the no are two different options. No, but we should, or no, we're doing pretty well winging it. And that's not a bad thing to do, but have a plan is always a good thing. And you should always, have a plan, but in my mind, you should have a plan and then know to adjust it based on what's happening in the world, in your industry, in your local environment. And I think Maria and what they're doing over there at Central Florida Food Bank is a great example of that. Once Hurricane Irma came through here, they obviously were very, very much involved in that and made sure that they addressed that. I'm going to go ahead and close this one out, this poll. All right. And then I'm going to go ahead and share those results. So 72% of you do have a communications calendar. Terrific. And then 26% say no, but you should, which is good. At least you acknowledge that you should. Especially if you do a campaign year over year, it'll save you time next year if you have that communications calendar built and save all that content so you don't have to start from scratch every year. Obviously, again, you need to react and adjust based on how your metrics are doing, what's going on in the world, what's going on in the environment, logistical changes for the physical event, if you're doing a physical event. But you should always have we always recommend a communications plan in advance and then adjust as necessary. All right. So developing a communications calendar. One tip that our folks have is write down the date of the last communications and then work backwards from there, and then put together your communications calendar, spreadsheet, Google Sheet, whatever it is, shared Google Sheet or whatever, on a local drive that people can see, having what type of communication it is. Direct mail, maybe it's a system-generated autoresponder that goes in after someone makes a registration or donation. Facebook post, Twitter post, YouTube video, just put all of that in there. And again, compare it against your overall communications calendar to make sure you're on track with things and not stepping on your own toes. Then go in there and create the content once you have your calendar. Group similar messages together, refer to your communications calendar and campaign story whenever you're writing this up, and make sure you proofread your work and send it to a test group. This little screenshot in here is actually an old screenshot from an old campaign we helped Central Florida with Maria and her team way back in the day. And it just shows the power of the platforms. In this case, this is using TeamRaiser for the virtual food drive. And, it allows for personalization, entering in people's, whether or not they've updated their personal page. If they haven't updated their personal page, it gives them one message. If they have, it gives them another one. amount of dollars raised. It gives different communications to them whether or not they've raised any money or different levels. So create your content, take advantage of the platform you're using to conditionalize and personalize those messages just to make people feel like they're being heard and acknowledged. All right. Then go ahead and obviously and configure your platform. And we really break it down into a few different steps whenever we launch a new campaign with a client. There's actual platform configuration, which is clicking in, setting different goals, naming the campaign. Then there's the look and feel or design of it. And then the other big bucket, and really probably the time you should spend the most time on, is the content itself. Again, what goes out in autoresponder messages, what goes out in sample emails or tweets, your kits, your toolkits, your different fundraising guides, anything you can do to help your participants do your fundraising job for you and the organization, right? And I was trying to think of a good image to put here. I thought this is at least a good summary of about planning all this and making sure as much as possible going into the last minute, so you're not making launches or system updates, for example, at 3:30 on a Friday when everybody's that could really support you at the platform vendor and your IT team has gone home for the weekend and leave an error up there. Plan your configuration and your entire launch well in advance if possible. And I'd never recommend launching on a Friday as a general rule. Then determine your metrics to measure for success. And again, this all goes back to looking at your goals and measuring towards achieving your goals based on where you are in the campaign life cycle. Is registration just opened? How many weeks until from launch or until the event? And then compare that year over year. So you have those metrics so you can see how you're doing compared to past campaigns. Check the effectiveness of certain outreach. Make sure you look at your emails, the open rates, the click-through rates, and then fundraising based on that or registration based on that after that. All right, let's get into launching your campaign. Kick off your campaign. Send an email, direct mail to current past donors. Post on social media, the website, signs. You might do a light box or a modal on your website to highlight this campaign. You might just send out email communications or put it up in the recent news on the homepage of your site. And maybe consider a soft launch for your campaign where you open it up to staff, board, and maybe even your top fundraisers, or if it's a legacy event, your top team captains from top largest teams or most fundraising teams. So to get them in there to basically seed the campaign prior to opening it up to general fundraising communications, and put out there, obviously a discount code, potentially an early bird rate to help folks with fundraising or get them to register earlier by doing those early bird rates. I have a screenshot here of a campaign. Actually, Maria, you just launched yesterday, right?
Yes.
You want to talk more about that one?
We're the charity for the Disney Wine and Dine race that's coming up in November, and so with the race, they give us 15 slots, so we can have runners fundraise for us for those slots. And so we've been talking to some local running groups in our community already, and kind of just putting them in their ears. And now that we've launched it, we launched it with Everyday Hero, we're going to start recruiting individuals to fill up these spots. And but something also that we do with our virtual food drive as a soft launch is a tactic that we use is we have our individuals who sign up for a regular food drive fill out a form, so then we're able to send them a direct mail piece around the time when they usually do their food drives, and as a reminder of this is another way that you could do a drive. Instead of just like bringing food to the food bank, you can do it online and make a bigger impact. As well, in our welcome series, it's like the second email that an individual receives, and we are targeting our volunteers and encouraging them to do a virtual food drive, so the communication is constantly out there about virtual food drives.
Terrific. All right. Oh, and we have another poll question. All right, so let me pull up the next one here. Do you soft launch your campaign prior to general marketing? I'm going to go ahead and launch that one, simple yes or no. So I'll give you guys a few moments to fill that out. And again, thanks for your participation in this. I think it's going to help. We're probably going to do a blog post afterwards with some of these results, in addition to recording these webinars and sharing them after the fact. No worries, your vote is private. It's just the actual percentages that are shown here. Your individual votes are not. So, no worries there if that is a concern. All right, I'm just going to give people another moment or two to answer that poll question. Just go ahead and click right in there, and then I'm going to shut that one down and share the results. So about half do, about half don't. Not a right or a wrong here, I don't think. Just something for your consideration. Again, to do a soft launch. Again, it might not make sense for your campaign, or if you have a legacy event where you have some really diehard participants that are really passionate about this, you also don't want to offend anybody if you soft launch it and didn't include them. So, again, no right or wrong, but something to consider, a soft launch to really seed that fundraising and show people that it's already up and running. And also, if it's a first-time use, definitely a good way to kick the tires and make sure everything's working right. If you're using a new a tool, a new platform, or just completely new branding, whatever it might be, it allows you some time to check out what is or possibly is not working right. All right, thanks for playing.
This is Ed. One thing with a soft launch that I found is a lot of times when you're working with like a committee or you have some key constituents, sometimes it's good to get them registered early, especially for those of you who may have a counter of how many people are registered for your event on your website. A lot of people don't want to register for an event that has nobody registered, and so having that soft launch sometimes can help when you make your big promotion, because you already have kind of people committed to it, and it really helps. It helps those who have that kind of fear of missing out to kind of get on it and sign up since they see other people already committed.
That's a great
really
point.
Good point.
Yeah, thanks, Adam. Then we get into recruiting your fundraisers, right? Identify who you're going to target, past participants, if it's a legacy event, key constituents, all constituents. Consider that along with other campaigns, so you're not cannibalizing from other campaigns with what you're launching now. Know what to say and when to say it, and then think outside the box. And I think, again, Second Harvest has some great examples here. Maria, anything else to add about what you did here?
And just going back to what Adam just said, when we did send out this e-blast, we already had 63 people that had already registered, so that was definitely something that we pointed out in our messaging that said, you should join these 63 individuals and help fight hunger. And then we also kind of highlight some of the tools that we have for people. We have a social media toolkit with like Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, graphics that they can use to help them fundraise. And then we also have badges that you can unlock depending on how much you raise. And so we definitely like to highlight those things that they encounter once they sign up for a food drive.
Excellent, great. And then there was a question in the here about talking about, can we talk about recruiting people from outside your database? That's a great question. So, when it comes to posting, obviously, if you have the marketing budget and plan to do broadcast radio or ads, or working with local running groups if it's a running event, or local sponsors and companies to promote your campaign or have their staff even involved with it. That's all very big. I don't know, Adam or Maria, anything to add about recruiting outside of people that are already inside your database?
Something that we do is we have a volunteer area, and so we definitely put we have like a toolkit, and we print it out, like it's a manual that we print out, and we leave a bunch of them in the volunteer area. And then something else that we also do is in the back of our bathroom stalls, we set up an area where you can put posters and promote things, and so we promote our virtual food drive on there as well. So we just find, because we have so many volunteers that come into our facility every single day, we have these audiences that just come in here, and we try to, so they're not in our database, but they're here. So we try to grab them.
Terrific.
Yeah, we do communicate to constituents that are not engaged with our events as well, and we actually that's included in our communications calendar. Some different communications that are targeted specifically to those individuals. One of the other things we do is we have an autoresponder that we have set up that goes to somebody once they register, within a couple days of them registering, that basically actually says forward this email. And so makes it a little easier, rather than them only using the participant center tools. It actually just encourages them, send it along just to anybody on their email list and ask them. That way they don't have to, it's formatted, it's set up, ready to go, asking for them to donate and fundraise for the event. So they don't necessarily have to do any extra work other than just forwarding one email.
Great
we
tips.
use that too. I like that email.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's handy. Yeah, use the systems, right? This platform is there to make your lives easier. So definitely know the capabilities of the platform you're using, and take advantage of those features so that you can, set it up, set it, forget it, basically. All right. Let's get into coaching your peer-to-peer fundraisers, right? How do you get them prepped and help them fundraise on your behalf, or if it's a physical event, maybe even help them with training for a 5K, a marathon, a very long walk, that type of thing. So coaching tips, make it fun. Here's a campaign that I've been keeping an eye on. We worked with Many versus Cancer a bit in the past, and helping them select their platform. I'm seeing great things come out of what they're doing with this campaign from the prostate cancer group. And basically, I think they put a lot of the examples right here. Keep the message succinct, use bullet points, graphics, and videos. Keep content varied, so it's just not a bunch of flat text. Keep it fun. Use thermometers and social badges, as you saw in the example on the previous slide from Second Harvest, Central Florida, where they have badges for as people fundraise. I think they do a great job of using those badges, kind of gamification to show people, inspire them to raise more funds, and then give a shout out to them once they do. But yeah, make it fun. Videos are always really can quite often turn viral, or more likely to than a flat text email. Use emails for top fundraisers. Show them off, what's working, how they raised a lot, had a bake sale, what they used to ask for money, get over concern of fear of asking for money. Tips for fundraising, thermometers, again, examples of what funds can do, where the money actually goes to, and inspirational stories about how the funds raised are being used to support the overall mission. And then right here we have a couple of different slide screenshots that Adam had provided. Adam, anything to add about these?
Yeah, a lot of peer-to-peer fundraising is obviously getting people to take the first step, and that's to actually fundraise. A lot of campaigns tend to have the challenge of having a lot of non-fundraisers. One of the things that we always do is obviously we encourage people to make a donation themselves, and that you can actually see that in the kind of the way to raise $250. Asking people to personally make a donation. A lot of times people think that their registration fee for an event that has a registration fee, they think that is making the difference and really making the impact. But it really, we find that having people show that they have some skin in the game and really that they're invested in the cause makes it a lot easier for them to ask others, and kind of spelling out how they can ask or how they can set up a fundraiser. A lot of times it's really easy to say, oh, do a fundraiser, fundraise some way, but people don't necessarily need you to walk walk them through every step once they come up with an idea, but sometimes they need some inspiration in terms of what the ideas can be or how they can go about making an ask. If you can, the more you can quantify it and simplify things for your prospects, the more likely they are to take that first step in actually fundraising for your cause.
Perfect. Thank you. And also make it social, right? Images and stories, videos, pictures, ask for reposts, retweets, create a hashtag for your campaign. Here's another example I threw in here from Adam. I don't know if anything else to add. You have an early bird registration discount code in there. Anything else to add there?
Yeah, the early bird code, really what we're looking to do is, and there's a direct correlation between how far out from an event somebody registers to how much they fundraise. So it gives you more face time with that individual and more time to communicate when they're registered than when they're not. So we really try to encourage people to register early, not necessarily because we want to push or inflate our early numbers, but rather because the more time and opportunity we have to have direct communication with them, the more opportunity we have for them to fundraise. For most peer-to-peer events, the majority of participants register within a month, and a lot of times, I know for a lot of our events, within 2 to 3 weeks of our events is when about half of our registration takes place, including event day. So the more that you can get people to register early, the more opportunity they have to fundraise, because most people who are registering the day of an event are not going to be fundraising much for your organization.
Great point. All right, make it personal, get personal, right? Call your fundraisers. If you have the time, call your top fundraisers, write a personal note that really is effective, give a virtual high five via text, and here's a screenshot where they actually, in some of their communications with ABTA, they have images of their coaches, right, Em?
Yes, and it adds some personalization to it. A lot of times, in fundraising, especially when you're dealing with events and with mass market events, you don't necessarily have as much interaction with the person who you're working with at the organization, and just making yourself approachable. A lot of times you'll get that question. Questions, as sometimes simple or tedious as they are a great indicator to you and your organization that somebody's actually taking the initiative to fundraise on your behalf, and it gives you that good opportunity to reach out to them. A lot of times if making calls to those individuals or emailing them, you're not necessarily going to get a response, but if you can get them to take the step to reach out to you, you can forge a relationship to really help them take their fundraising to the next level.
And with your, like with our autoresponders, all our messaging, the end is always the person that handles all the communication for our virtual food drive. At the bottom, it always says like your personal coach. And so you're always like talking to them.
Great stuff. All right. Oh, next poll question. Let me throw this up here. How does your organization communicate with constituents during peer-to-peer campaigns? Let me go ahead and launch that. Again, this is a multi-select option. So are you doing direct mail, email, social media, SMS or text messaging, phone calls? Please select all that apply, and I'll leave that open for a few moments. Then there was a question while that's open. What happens when your participants do not meet their individual fundraising goals? Can they still participate in the run walk? Do you have that individual provide the funding they couldn't raise themselves? For the virtual campaign, Maria, and even for your virtual campaign, there is no fundraising minimum. But for the one that you just launched for Disney, I'm assuming there's a fundraising minimum. And what happens if they don't reach that?
Yeah, so the minimum is $500. We have them sign a form before they agree to participate and raise the money for us, and the form basically says if you're not able to raise $500, you have to give the rest.
Perfect. And then Adam, for your 5Ks, you just have the registration fees, and there's no fundraising minimum. There's a suggested fundraising minimum, but there's no required, is there? Or do you have any campaigns that do?
So for our endurance platform, like our marathon and endurance event series, we do have a minimum. And some of those partner events require it, like for example, the Chicago Marathon, which is coming up, they require that if you're going to participate, you have to raise a certain amount. But when it comes to our 5K platform, we do not have a minimum, but we do encourage and actually prompt people to set a fundraising goal. So that's something too that we really try to encourage with that, but we do not have a minimum for that. But we do have a registration fee to help us cover at least our overhead costs for each participant.
Yeah, that's a good question from the audience. So thank you for that. And there are platforms, and in that guide, that platform guide that we put out last October, again, that's available for download in the handout section of GoToWebinar control panel. You should see that there. If not, feel free to reach out to us afterwards. But one of the things that we talk about is whether or not the platform itself offers up some kind of a delayed self pledge or credit card guarantee functionality, where if there is a fundraising minimum, can the software basically take that like a credit card, like a car rental, and hold on to that reservation or that credit card information in a secure token environment, and then charge it at a later date for anything that if they haven't met their minimum to charge their credit card difference. So that is available in some platforms. Now I'm showing the poll results for how does your organization communicate with folks. Interesting, I think. 97% email, not surprised there. Direct mail, 32%. I'm actually a little surprised that many people are doing direct mail. Great to see, great to hear. Social media, 86%. Great to see that number being as high as it is, and I'm sure it'll only get higher. Interesting to see that 10% are doing text messaging to their constituents. So I didn't realize that was. I know it's a buzzword, but seeing it actually implemented successfully, haven't seen too many cases of that. I would love to talk with folks that are doing successful text messaging campaigns and connecting that back to their constituents and their participants. Would love to chat more about that. In fact, I think there's a session about it later on today that Twilio.org is going to be doing. So there are folks that are doing it right. It's just kind of early days in a lot of cases. And then great to see 55% are picking up the phone and calling folks as well. So thanks for participating in that. All right, and don't forget to segment your lists and tailor your messages to your participants, right? Maybe you'll have a separate email go out to team captains or conditionalize it so if they are a team captain, they get an extra sentence or paragraph at the top, kind of encouraging them to go ahead and recruit more team members or help with sharing fundraising tips, that type of thing with their team members. Then you might have separate individual messages for individual participants versus team captains or even team members. And then you can send out messaging based on whether or not someone has updated their personal page on their fundraising page, potentially. Or people that have raised no funds, right? If you're doing a 5K, like Adam mentioned, if they register kind of late in the game, first of all, you won't have much time to reach out to them, but hopefully you do have time to send them some messaging, and you can remind them that this is for a nonprofit with a great mission, and help them raise at least their first 20, 50 bucks, whatever it might be. Then you might send a separate message to folks that have raised less than or greater than $500. And then also messaging might be different for folks that have sent emails or haven't sent emails out of your fundraising, peer-to-peer fundraising platform. So think about segmenting your audiences and conditionalizing content based on those segments. And again, don't forget to listen, take an online survey, see how things are going, get together either in-person meetings or online, community, responding to emails, putting those phone numbers and emails in your emails to show people, and on your website to make sure people know who to contact and how. I think that screenshot that Adam had with the coach image and all that is a great example of showing the humans behind the campaign and how you can reach out to them. All right, so let's get into wrapping up your campaign as we're wrapping up this hour. Analyze your campaign, right? go back and look at your goals and look at your metrics and make sure you have all the numbers to see how you did. Look at other factors that might have affected how you did, either environmental, industry-wide, economy, weather, whatever it might be. What affected or helped your marketing campaign. It did great. It didn't do great. Debrief your team. Share that all the results. Do your postmortem. What worked, what didn't, and then look ahead at how to what to do differently next year to address those trends. And here's a couple screenshots from some analytics we did with ABTA previously to kind of look at where their registrants came from, and also look at their lapse versus loyal participants and how many folks fell into each one of those. And I think ABTA does a really good job at looking at their events and reviewing what worked, what didn't, and really adjusting based on that. While I'm sharing this next poll, which is do you feel your organization does a good job of campaign analytics? I'm going to ask, go ahead and answer that, everybody on the call. I'm going to ask Adam, anything to add about analytics?
One thing I think analytics definitely helps with and always remind you of is don't forget the people who missed you last year, especially if you have an ongoing peer-to-peer campaign. A lot of times people have things that come up in life so they can't make it to one year's event. But a lot of campaigns, I think, focus on the prior year participants without going back beyond that. So don't forget those people. Sometimes people just had a conflict. Weddings, showers, family events, personal things. So that's something to definitely keep in mind, is really focusing beyond that, because reactivating those lapsed participants, those people who didn't come back for year two or for the previous year, really can make a big difference. And a lot of times that's low-hanging fruit, people who already know how to fundraise and are familiar with your campaign, rather than focusing only on new acquisition.
Great, thanks. And I just shared the results of the poll, so not surprising to me. About 43% said yes, you feel like you're doing a good job of analyzing your event, and about 57% say no. Definitely check out our guide and also other resources, and feel free to give me a call if there's anything we can do to help with that. There's a lot of low-hanging fruit that can and should be done, even if it just starts with how many $0 fundraisers do you have in a 5K, for example. There's a lot of organizations that really just focus on the participants and the number of funds raised, but then looking at your 0 fundraisers and drilling into that and seeing what you can do to get people to actually fundraise can really make a difference. All right, don't forget to say thank you. Send a wrap-up email. Call your fundraisers. Consider a wrap-up event, a post-event thank you in person if that fits into the budget. But definitely send out surveys, ask for their feedback, what tools were most and least helpful, what did they like most and least, and how would they suggest you improve the event moving forward. So get their feedback, make sure that they feel like they're being listened to, and that you can improve on it. And obviously, don't take a survey or ask questions that you can't or don't plan on acting on. All right, keep in touch, make regular updates, keep them on your newsletter list, include them in year-round campaigns. In other words, the way I picture the ladder there is, what can we do to work them up that engagement ladder, right? If they were a donor last year, can they be a participant this year? If they've been multi-year participants, can they be volunteers? Can they be recurring donors to your overall organization, as an end goal, or what is your end goal and how do you help them get there? I know we're kind of running late here, or just coming up on time, so if you have any questions, we'll stay on for a few more moments. Actually happy to answer any of those. We've been answering them along the way. But don't forget to download the Nonprofit's Guide to Peer-to-Peer Fundraising, which is available in the handout section along with the platform guide we put out last October. And there's our contact information as well. Feel free to give us an email, and we'd love to hear from you. And happy to answer any questions you might have. If you are going to be attending the next call, I do have to say, remind you, to go ahead and hang up. This call will end, and then there's a separate call-in for the next call. So we'll be ending this momentarily. after we make sure we address any questions in the chat. But thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you, Maria and Adam, for your insights, and we really appreciate your time. I'm not seeing any questions in here. So at this time, I'm going to wrap up this session. And again, thank you for your time today, and hope you can join us for other sessions throughout the day.